All right. So we're doing well with that issue, and we have a whole group of people, which is nice to see. And today we're going to be talking on how our mind can influence or determine our health. And hopefully we can have some discussion and fun with that topic and learn a little bit from each other. Before we do that, it looks like we have a number of new people in the group, at least new names that I haven't seen before. If there's anybody who considers themselves sort of new, first or second time, hasn't spoken up or told us how you found out about the classes, or what you might hope to gain from them, we'd love to hear from you. It helps us to try to decide how to keep moving the message forward. And perhaps you have a doctor who sent you, perhaps you saw a flyer, perhaps you saw something online. Just kind of curious. Anybody care to unmute themselves and share? So Susan.
Yes, I've been plant-based for 4 years now, and I found out about this from a friend of mine that participates. I also know Trouty. And anyway, yeah, I guess what I need help with is, since I've been plant-based for 4 years, and I am slowly losing weight. My numbers aren't that great. The reason I started originally was because of having high cholesterol, and I can't tolerate statins. And I finally said, okay, this is it. I'm stopping meat and dairy, eggs, all that. So anyway, my biggest problem is I love peanuts and peanut butter. So I know it's the nuts. I know what it is, but anyway, that's why I'm here.
Well, welcome to the class. We're glad to have you, and there is help. It can be in the form of someone else in the class who've struggled in a similar manner. It could be potentially one of the med student, Lisa Chick, who does free kind of talks or counseling with the people in the class who want to spend a session or 2 or 3 with her. We've had a lot of good feedback, and it's been helpful for a lot of people. So keep that in mind as you move forward, if you're not getting the benefits that you want.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to, it's free. And then we finished recently the classes on weight management, and so you can go back to the class archives on the class website if you're not familiar with the class website, and watch the recordings of those to kind of get caught up, since that's one of your big goals is weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the website?
Yes.
Okay.
I did look at it. I haven't explored it as much as I probably should, but so there's okay, what was it called again?
So yeah, let me share my screen here. And
yeah, Scott is going to kind of go on a tour here with you, so especially for you and for whoever else is new. So he's going to livelifestylemedicine.com.
Yeah, livelifestylemedicine.com. So the best thing to do if you're new to the website is just to scroll down on the homepage here and watch the website tutorial. So if you click right here, you can watch about a 15-minute tutorial. I give you a tour of what's all available on the website and where to find everything and how to use the website. So do that just to get the best information. But just to give you the real quick on if you click on resources tab here, and you can go to Actually, no, I was going to show you the class archives actually, because you're interested in that. So you click on class archives, and here's 2023. So our beginning of the classes at the beginning of the year here. They go in reverse order. So if you wanted to start from the beginning, here's my introduction, Charlie's introduction, meal preparation, planning a couple of the classes. We have open forums periodically just for question and answers. And then I was telling you about the weight management. So you can watch the ones here, February 7th and February 14th, weight management part 1 and part 2. And that'll give you a good overview of how to get the maximum weight loss eating whole food plant-based.
Mhm.
Check that out.
Yeah, I do listen to I watch a lot of Chef AJ's
Oh, good.
interviews. So, it's what I'm pretty sure about what my problem is.
Oh yeah. Did you watch the Health Summit, the Truth About Weight Loss?
No,
Summit?
I didn't, but
Oh, yeah.
I did, I do watch her interviews. I enjoy the ones with Dr. McDougall,
Mhm.
and I feel like I think I need to have him as my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Well, you could kind of do that by listening to him every day. He's got plenty of YouTube and plenty of information on his site.
Uh-huh.
So he can be a good friend. Okay. Anyway, welcome, Susan. Anybody else who's new, how you find out about the class and what you might hope to gain? Any thoughts?
I'm Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Hi, I'm a painter and artist.
Yeah.
Been studying nutrition for about 25 years, and I have caught up on all the classes now. So this is my first night in real time, although I've looked at all the other classes that have happened the last couple months. And I guess that I have to say that I became pretty enraged when I signed in, because I said, oh my God, I was, young, and I was taking all these classes from these nutritionists at hospitals. And I actually went to one of them and I said, I'm reading all this stuff, this book called The China Study, and I'm also reading John McDougall. And I really think that people can reverse, poor health. And she goes, no. And I was just, during that time in my life, $140 that the classes cost was all of my disposable income. And so I've now passed that enraged part a couple days ago, and I'm just happy to be a part of this community. Yeah.
Wow, that's a story that we haven't heard other people share too often. We've run up against the old traditional nutrition training quite frequently, where people have kind of dug their heels in and just insist that what we're promoting is not what they're going to promote for their patients, and why they don't want to look at the science and get it. I don't know, other than it's hard for people to make change. But your story is really quite a wonderful one, and thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for being here, you people.
You found your tribe. You're welcome.
I like that.
All right. Anybody else care to speak up and share?
Yeah, can I say something, Charlie?
Of course, Sean.
Welcome, guys. I'm Sean. I'm a dietitian with Eugene Plant-Based Providers. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, I just want to apologize to Jamie for having to go through that experience. As a dietitian, we're not all like that. And I do feel your frustration, because going through the classes and the education and spending time with dietitians before I became one, I had similar experiences, but there are a few of us out here that are definitely trying to change that course.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, so Sean has just been a shining star and really been a promoter in our area here. And we're lucky to have him as part of the group of Eugene plant-based providers.
He's one of them that's changing it, one body full of arteries at a time, huh?
Exactly. I don't know if Karen's here tonight, but she's another one in this area, you know, so.
And also Thomas Bosch. Thomas Bosch is a plant-based. I mean, he's a regular dietitian, but he's very, very supportive of plant-based nutrition.
So that
That's
makes
3 we
kind
know
of
of.
4 of you in this area that we
Yeah.
personally know now, which is pretty good.
There was actually another one too, ironically. When I worked at Riverbend, I was the only plant-based dietitian there. And a few years ago, one of them texted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, me and my husband went plant-based. We feel great, and I can't believe we didn't do this sooner." And she's just awestruck. And I think she kind of had a glimpse the way that I had a glimpse of, like, how come there aren't more dietitians doing this? Because clearly this is what the research supports.
There's also a dietitian from Riverbend, and she and her husband run the vegan potluck. Karen and Wesley.
Yeah, she's at Mackenzie Willamette with me.
Yeah.
I think is she here? I think she's here right now.
Karen, if you're here, say hello. Maybe not. Okay. Anybody else care to chime in with how you found out about the classes and maybe we're good with new people? All right. Trouty, thanks for sending along one of your friends or
I didn't do it. I just talked about it, how good it is.
well, you're having an impact just like we have an impact. You
I
know,
know
are
I
we
do, but I gotta keep my mouth shut sometimes.
no,
I'm too enthusiastic about things, and I
well,
think things are good.
I don't think Susan thought you were too enthusiastic. So anyway,
Well, it done me good.
all right. All right. So I think we're ready to carry on with the program tonight. First, we're going to have Scott go back to the webpage and share with you some of the books we may be mentioning and where you might find these resources.
All right, back to the website here. Go back, here's the home page. And then we'll click on resources. You can either click on resources or just hover. And then here's book. I just want to show you some books. Click on the books. And then I just want to show you the 5 that are related to class this week and next week, as well as in 2 weeks from now. So the next 3 weeks, kind of similar topic Charlie's going to go over, but here's some of the books. This first one, the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living. This was actually the book Lisa Chick we did for the book club that you can also join. So we did that the last 2 months, and then we'll be starting a new book this month. And so that one's actually on here too. It's this one here, Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss. That's the next book club book. But so this one here, and then Awaken the Giant Within, Tony Robbins, Talking to Yourself by Dr. Pamela Butler, Full Catastrophe Living, and the 5 Love Languages. So those are the ones that you'll hear Charlie throughout tonight and the next 2 weeks referring to, and they're all here on the website. It has the link to get it on Amazon. Some of them, I'm sure many of them are at the library. You could check out if you want to check those out. That's all I wanted to show you for pertaining to class tonight.
Hear you. It's fine.
Okay. So I'm gonna, I guess, mute the room for a
Oh, yeah, that's
moment.
me. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna just kind of mute everybody here. Let's see, it says mute all. And then that kind of keeps the noise down a bit. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up, or you could put something in the chat. I can't actually see it, but Scott can see it potentially. So, if you really have something and you want it answered now, just unmute and say, I have a question, or hold on. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. And this is a week about talking about, can our minds determine our health? And there's another title of this, kind of get the junk out of the trunk. And what I mean by that, getting the junk out of the trunk, is if you have an automobile and you carry around a lot of heavy weights, books, or heavy objects in the back of the trunk, you get less gas mileage. Your car doesn't work as efficiently. And the same thing effectively can happen with your brain and your body. If you've got a lot of junk up in your brain, and what I'm talking about is junk is your thoughts, and specifically the negative thoughts that you come up with on a regular basis about yourself, usually. We're going to spend some time talking about that and see how we can rid ourselves of this junk and get on to lead more joyful and more productive lives. So I'm going to give you a quick summary. For those of you who don't have a lot of time and want to just check out the first 5 minutes and get the summation, this is how it goes. Your mind can determine whether you're healthy or not. There's a huge influence that your mind has on your overall health. Positive thoughts will promote your health. So, and the reverse is true. Negative thoughts will demote your health. And then do not postpone joy. Do not postpone joy. We'll talk about that a bit. Be mindful by practicing techniques that work for you, and get rid of the junk in your brain to lead the happiest and healthiest life. So there you have it. You've got the summary of today's topic. And before we go any further, I want to talk a little bit about the influence our mind has on our physical behavior. Our bodies have developed a number of conditioned responses. Some of you may remember Pavlov's dog. Well, and the experiments about that, and others of you may not, but I want to do a little experiment with each of you. So I'm going to open up the room so I can see you all. I guess you can see me too, and I can see you all. And I'm going to take from my hand, here I am in my hand, I've got a bunch of these lemon drops. Now, it's going to be a rare time that I am going to share anything with sugar, processed sugar with you. But today is one of those times that I'm going to do that. We're going to do this virtually, and I'm going to take a lemon drop, and I want you to put your hand out, and I want you to take that lemon drop. I'm going to put it in your palm of your hand. So let's put the lemon drop in each one of your hands. Now I want you next to take your other hand, a finger, and roll that lemon drop around in the palm of your hand. If you're not sweating too much, it won't get sticky. You'll just feel those sugar granules that are on there. Okay, and now we have this lemon drop, and we're going to take it. I want you to grab it, and I want you to place it on the tip of your tongue. Not so it rolls out of your mouth, but so it stays on there. So leave that lemon drop on the tip of your tongue, and I want you to focus on what you're actually feeling and tasting. So if you can imagine this lemon drop, what's the first flavor, the first taste that you feel from this lemon drop? It's kind of sweet. It's got that sugary taste to it. And then shortly thereafter, what comes through? That lemony taste that kind of makes you pucker a little bit. Yeah? Okay, so now I'm going to stop this little experiment and I want to see how many of you actually have a little extra saliva or watering in your mouth. Just talking. There's a lot of you with your hands up. Now, you all know you haven't had a lemon drop in your hand nor put it in your mouth or any of those issues. We've just been talking. This is totally a thought experiment. And it goes to show you how conditioned our brains are and our body response can be, even if we're not dealing with what you would call reality. And we live with this day by day. Then the thoughts we have about ourselves will influence our behavior, whether we're able to transition our diet from a standard American diet to a whole food, plant-based diet. So that's why this meeting time is so important to you. It's important for you to understand you've been listening to the science and you're kind of saying to yourself, you know, this is something I probably want to do. But at the same time, for some of you, it's very, very difficult to actually make that transition. There are so many barriers that seem to pop up. It could be something like phrases from your friends or families about how this is going to make you sick. You can't be healthy eating this way. It could be your beliefs about how you need to get enough protein or you're not going to be healthy. And where are you going to get your protein? We think about that as coming from animals as opposed to from plants. And there's so many of these beliefs that we've really not explored, but control our behavior. And until we kind of evaluate them and put them on the shelf that actually defines their truth, it can be a barrier to us actually making the change in our life that we deserve. And that's the health we deserve from eating healthy foods and making other healthy lifestyle choices. And remember the healthy lifestyle choices. There's 4 of them that are going to determine whether you're healthy or whether you're ill. The 4 of them are what you choose to eat is probably the biggest one. The next is how you move throughout the day. It doesn't have to be marathon running. It doesn't have to be severe weightlifting. It's just moving more throughout the day. And the third is the chemicals you choose, the smoking, the drinking, the other chemicals that you're getting, the colors that you get in the processed foods, the preservatives that you get in the processing of foods. Those are all chemicals which are affecting your health. Even some of the sweeteners that you're using to make your food palatable can be detrimental to your health. And you're learning about those in these classes. And then the 4th thing, which it's not really the 4th thing, it could be the 1st thing, is the stress and how you deal with that in your life. And when I talk about stress, I mean more than just, you have a heavy workload and you can't get everything done. It could be the stress connected with not getting enough sleep. It could be the stress connected with not having adequate social contacts. There's a whole bunch of things connected with that. It could be the monetary or financial condition you're in. Those things could really influence your ability to gain your health. But that's why when we share with you about the foods you can eat, we share with you foods that are actually less expensive. So we try to break down one barrier, the financial barrier, and make this a less expensive way for you to at least eat. Okay, let's explore this a little bit further. And that is, let's think about how our mind influences our health. And I want to review at least 2 other studies. The first study is a study about knee surgeries that was done in Canada. It's been probably, 10 years ago, maybe 15 by now. They took 2 groups of people with a similar kind of problem with their knee. The problem with the knee was a meniscus tear. There's cartilage between your bones, between the femur and the tibia. at your knee, and they kind of move forward and backward, those two bones, but they have a cushion. It's like a tire, something like a shock absorber. And sometimes that cushion or shock absorber, the meniscus, can get a little tear. And that can cause a little locking in the knee, or it could cause some discomfort when you move your knee in a certain fashion. And people don't like to have anything, any kind of defect in their body. And the orthopedists like doing fun surgeries that carry little risk with them. It's good for, you know, their ego, and not bad for the pocketbook to have a surgery. But the question is how effective is the surgery in which they remove part of the meniscus if you have a minor kind of meniscal tear? So they took these two groups of people. One group they took into the operating room, they opened them up, and they removed that meniscus and they sewed them back up. That's how the usual procedure is done. The other group of people, they took into the operating room, they made an incision on the skin in the same area, but they immediately closed it right back up. No removing any meniscus. No doing a surgery other than cut the skin, close the skin. You all got that? I hope so. So what do you think the results were at the end of a year when they went around and they questioned the participants in this study? The amount of pain that they had, their ability to do their normal daily activities, their sports activities. Zero difference. No difference between the two groups. So you ask yourself, wow, is removing that meniscus just a placebo kind of surgery? People think they're having something done and that's good enough to get them well again? Well, it's sure possible. Well, let's look at another study. The second study is kind of interesting. Not something I want to participate in, but you know, I guess if you get a little pay for doing a study, maybe it might be worth it to you. They took couples. It was the same group of couples. And with one group of the couples, they took them into a counseling session where they talked about all the positive things that happened in their marriage or life or time together. And they told them, you know, just before you got together, can you express what fun things you did, how you felt about each other, how your feelings at that time were? And if the couples got stuck after a while, they would say, well, tell us what else was good in your life. And all they did is talk about positive things in their relationship. And at the end of their discussion time, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I can't remember how long anymore, they said, okay, it's time for the second part of the experiment. So they took an instrument and they punched out some of the skin on their thorax. And then they watched how many hours and days it took for that area to heal. Well, the second group of people were the same people, but this group of people now, instead of having them go into counseling and talking about the positive things, what did they direct them to do? Talk about the negative things. The last time they had a fight together. What don't you like about this person? What's the bad about the relationship? And every time they would stop and kind of like pause, the therapist would say, okay, tell me a little bit more about some other conflict in your life. And at the end of that time, they punched out some of the skin. They watched to see how long it would take to heal. And do you know how long it took to heal? Was there any difference? It was 30 to 40% faster wound healing. I'll let you take a guess. What group? The ones who talked about the positive things in their relationship. That really impressed me, that study about how we focus our minds. And I must tell you, there was a time in my life where I spent a lot of time focusing on the negative things in my life. I continued to go to work every day, but at times I would kind of get down when my focus was directed to all the negative things I had to deal with and some of the negative thoughts I had about myself. And the less that became an issue with me, the more positive I became. Actually, I think I became healthier. I've never had a real chronic illness like diabetes or heart trouble or cancer, knock on wood. So I guess I can't really claim that it's made a major difference in my physical life, but in my mental life, I know it has made a difference. And I know that those people who are more are less critical of themselves, they're more happy. And that's what I'm looking for, wishing for all of you. There's another thing. I have one last example to share with you, and I've kind of slowed this down a little bit. Before I had kind of an hour to get through all this, and Scott has been gracious enough to grant me some more time on this. And so I thought I'd like to savor this a little bit more as we go along and try to get you to really understand. I was in Roseburg, must have been, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And one of my patients there was a grandmother. She had a grandson. And she was telling me about how her grandson brought her joy and how, you know, she was kind of under the weather most of the time. But when she interacted with her grandson, it really brought joy into her life. Now, this was a lady who had trouble walking. She was on antidepressants, she was on pain medicine, and she didn't have the greatest quality of life, I would say. But she came back and she told me about a story that happened with her. She said her grandson asked her to walk down to the fish ladder. He wanted to see the fish in Roseburg. Now, Roseburg has this dam, and you can walk down steps and look through a window and see these magnificent fish in there. It's a pretty interesting sight. And as it turns out, there's about 1,000 steps. I don't think it's really 1,000, but there's several hundred. Many more than this lady could possibly have done if she had asked me if she could do it. Well, she told me her grandson wanted to do it. And so she walked down, was not sure she could get back up, but because she was with him, she got all the way back up. She didn't wind up in bed or in a wheelchair because of that, but her mind overcame her disability of not being able to get around or walking up and down stairs for someone else. So you all know my story. I didn't want to change what I was eating for myself, but I did it for my wife's sake, and it made it a whole lot easier. And I'm so grateful that I did it because it really helped me. I'd love the same for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about stress. And before we go further, I want to give you a little lesson in stress reduction. I first learned about this when I was driving down the road, listening to a tape. And there was this doctor cardiologist who was explaining how she put the brakes on her sympathetic nervous system by taking deep breaths. So I want us all to practice this for just a couple times. And I'll tell you what it's done for me. When I get under stress and I'm late, my wife has made dinner and I've got another patient to see, or, you know, I'm behind on something, I can feel my body kind of tense up, and I need to be relaxed and able to kind of listen to the patient. And so I use this technique by taking some breaths in now. For a while, I had to kind of do 3 sets, and now I'm down to 1 set. It allows me to kind of get relaxed, be present, and be able to listen to the patient who I need to see. So let's all do that. I'm going to have you take a breath in for 4 seconds. So take a breath in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold it for a couple seconds, and then let it out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then we're going to take another breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it and let it out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And last breath in. 1, 2, 4. Hold it and let your shoulders just drop as you exhale. If you practice that, it's a very simple exercise which can put the brakes on your body's response, the fight or flight response. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's the response that allows you to save yourself when you're out in the forest and you need to run from an animal or you need to fight that animal to save your life. And during that episode, you get a kick out of adrenaline or epinephrine, which causes your heart to race and your blood pressure to go up and your, heart to pound. And you may sweat actually because of that. And you do that for a brief time and then hopefully it's over. Unfortunately, in our current society, we do that on a not so acute basis, but we do it all day long on a chronic basis. And we need to break that cycle. So let's talk a little bit about stress. And I used to teach people that all stress was bad until along came Kelly McGonigal. And Kelly McGonigal is worth listening to because she is one who taught me about how to make stress my friend. So she has a 14-minute session, which is on the website, but I want to play it for you for right now. I'm going to share my screen here a little bit with you and see if I can find Kelly McGonigal's. She's really worth listening to. Why didn't that do it? Well, let's see. Here is the thing. And why is that coming up? I have a way to get there. If I can't do it that way, I can do it this way. Here we go. Backup plan.
I have a confession to make. But first, I want you to make a little confession to me. In the past year, I want you to just raise your hand if you've experienced relatively little stress. Anyone? How about a moderate amount of stress? Who's experienced a lot of stress? Yeah, me too. But that is not my confession. My confession is this: I'm a health psychologist, and my mission is to help people be happier and healthier. But I fear that something I've been teaching for the last 10 years is doing more harm than good, and it has to do with stress. For years, I've been telling people stress makes you sick. It increases the risk of everything from the common cold to cardiovascular disease. Basically, I've turned stress into the enemy. But I've changed my mind about stress. And today, I want to change yours. Let me start with the study that made me rethink my whole approach to stress. This study tracked 30,000 adults in the United States for 8 years. And they started by asking people, how much stress have you experienced in the last year? They also asked, do you believe that stress is harmful for your health? And then they used public death records to find out who died. Okay, some bad news first. People who experienced a lot of stress in the previous year had a 43% increased risk of dying. But that was only true for the people who also believed that stress is harmful for your health. People who experienced a lot of stress but did not view stress as harmful were no more likely to die. In fact, they had the lowest risk of dying of anyone in the study, including people who had relatively little stress. Now, the researchers estimated that over the 8 years they were tracking deaths, 182,000 Americans died prematurely, not from stress, but from the belief that stress is bad for you. That is over 20,000 deaths a year. Now, if that estimate is correct, that would make believing stress is bad for you the 15th largest cause of death in the United States last year, killing more people than skin cancer, HIV, AIDS, and homicide. You can see why this study freaked me out. Here I've been spending so much energy telling people stress is bad for your health. So this study got me wondering, can changing how you think about stress make you healthier? And here the science says yes. When you change your mind about stress, you can change your body's response to stress. Now, to explain how this works, I want you all to pretend that you are participants in a study designed to stress you out. It's called the social stress test. You come into the laboratory and you're told you have to give a 5-minute impromptu speech on your personal weaknesses to a panel of expert evaluators sitting right in front of you. And to make sure you feel the pressure, there are bright lights and a camera in your face, kind of like this. And the evaluators have been trained to give you discouraging nonverbal feedback, like this. Now that you're sufficiently demoralized, time for part 2, a math test. And unbeknownst to you, the experimenter has been trained to harass you during it. Now, we're going to all do this together. It's going to be fun. For me. Okay. I want you all to count backwards from 996 in increments of 7. You're going to do this out loud as fast as you can, starting with 996. Go. Go faster. Faster, please. You're going too slow. Stop, 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 stop. That guy made a mistake. We're going to have to start all over again. You're not very good at this, are you? Okay, so you get the idea. Now, if you were actually in this study, you'd probably be a little stressed out. Your heart might be pounding, you might be breathing faster, maybe breaking out into a sweat. And normally we interpret these physical changes as anxiety or signs that we aren't coping very well with the pressure. But what if you viewed them instead as signs that your body was energized, was preparing you to meet this challenge? Now, that is exactly what participants were told in a study conducted at Harvard University. Before they went through the social stress test, they were taught to rethink their stress response as helpful. That pounding heart is preparing you for action. If you're breathing faster, it's no problem. It's getting more oxygen to your brain. And participants who learned to view the stress response as helpful for their performance, well, they were less stressed out, less anxious, more confident. But the most fascinating finding to me was how their physical stress response changed. Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage. Over a lifetime of stressful experiences, this one biological change could be the difference between a stress-induced heart attack at age 50 and living well into your 90s. And this is really what the new science of stress reveals, that how you think about stress matters. So my goal as a health psychologist has changed. I no longer want to get rid of your stress. I want to make you better at stress. And we just did a little intervention. If you raised your hand and said you'd had a lot of stress in the last year, we could have saved your life. Because hopefully the next time your heart is pounding from stress, you're going to remember this talk, and you're going to think to yourself, this is my body helping me rise to this challenge. And when you view stress in that way, your body believes you, and your stress response becomes healthier. Now, I said I have over a decade of demonizing stress to redeem myself from. So we are going to do one more intervention. I want to tell you about one of the most underappreciated aspects of the stress response. And the idea is this: stress makes you social. To understand this side of stress, we need to talk about a hormone, oxytocin. And I know oxytocin has already gotten as much hype as a hormone can get. It even has its own cute nickname, the cuddle hormone, because it's released when you hug someone. But this is a very small part of what oxytocin is involved in. Oxytocin is a neurohormone. It fine-tunes your brain's social instincts. It primes you to do things that strengthen close relationships. Oxytocin makes you crave physical contact with your friends and family. It enhances your empathy. It even makes you more willing to help and support the people you care about. Some people have even suggested we should snort oxytocin to become more compassionate and caring. But here's what most people don't understand about oxytocin. It's a stress hormone. Your pituitary gland pumps this stuff out as part of the stress response. It's as much a part of your stress response as the adrenaline that makes your heart pound. And when oxytocin is released in the stress response, it is motivating you to seek support. Your biological stress response is nudging you to tell someone how you feel instead of bottling it up. Your stress response wants to make sure you notice when someone else in your life is struggling so that you can support each other. When life is difficult, your stress response wants you to be surrounded by people who care about you. Okay, so how is knowing this side of stress going to make you healthier? Well, oxytocin doesn't only act on your brain, it also acts on your body. And one of its main roles in your body is to protect your cardiovascular system from the effects of stress. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. It also helps your blood vessels stay relaxed during stress. But my favorite effect on the body is actually on the heart. Your heart has receptors for this hormone. And oxytocin helps heart cells regenerate and heal from any stress-induced damage. This stress hormone strengthens your heart. And the cool thing is that all of these physical benefits of oxytocin are enhanced by social contact and social support. So when you reach out to others under stress, either to seek support or to help someone else, you release more of this hormone, your stress response becomes healthier, and you actually recover faster from stress. I find this amazing that your stress response has a built-in mechanism for stress resilience. And that mechanism is human connection. I want to finish by telling you about one more study. And listen up, because this study could also save a life. This study tracked about 1,000 adults in the United States, and they ranged in age from 34 to 93. And they started the study by asking, how much stress have you experienced in the last year? They also asked, how much time have you spent helping out friends, neighbors, people in your community? And then they used public records for the next 5 years to find out who died. Okay, so the bad news first. For every major stressful life experience, like financial difficulties or family crisis, that increased the risk of dying by 30%. But, and I hope you are expecting a but by now, but that wasn't true for everyone. People who spent time caring for others showed absolutely no stress-related increase in dying, 0. Caring created resilience. And so we see once again that the harmful effects of stress on your health are not inevitable. How you think and how you act can transform your experience of stress. When you choose to view your stress response as helpful, you create the biology of courage. And when you choose to connect with others under stress, you can create resilience. Now, I wouldn't necessarily ask for more stressful experiences in my life, but this science has given me a whole new appreciation for stress. Stress gives us access to our hearts. The compassionate heart that finds joy and meaning in connecting with others. And yes, your pounding physical heart working so hard to give you strength and energy. And when you choose to view stress in this way, you're not just getting better at stress, you're actually making a pretty profound statement. You're saying that you can trust yourself to handle life's challenges. And you're remembering that you don't have to face them alone. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to stop there for a moment because I'm kind of interested to hear if anybody has any kind of thoughts about that. If that was something new for you, if that was something you already knew about, just kind of curious. Anybody care to share what is going on in their brain? I'll look for either a hand raise or a unmute or something. So I see Nancy.
Yeah, I know I'm usually hiding, but I want to thank you a million times for that. That is one of the most powerful tools that could ever be delivered to any of us, you know, and to increase resilience, well, you know, you've been doing it all along, turning assumptions on their head and looking at things in a fresh way. And this does the same thing emotionally, you know, turn it on its head, trust your body, trust the way we're made, you know, that the whole complex is meant to make us strong and to give us resilience. So I just cannot thank you enough for this. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Well, thanks for the feedback. I know the first time I saw it, I was blown away. And each time I watch it, it's been a number of times now. It's always of value. I always get inspired by what she says.
Yeah.
Anybody else had experience with this? Or just thoughts? We have plenty more to talk about, so it's okay. You'll have an opportunity as time goes on to share some more. So why don't I go back then for a bit and continue on. I'm gonna share my screen again. So the next thing I'm going to share with you is a PowerPoint that I had a medical student work with me to put on some pictures. He did a much better job with the pictures than I did. He took my words and set them to some pictures which seemed to make sense. And I want to tell you, for years that I've been a physician, I've dealt with a number of people who have anxiety and depression. It's really a common theme. and our mental health is really an important issue. Many of us have either ourselves or relatives who have these kinds of issues. And this is what people tell me when they have underlying anxiety or depression. They say something like, I'm going out of my mind, or I'm always tired and I don't have any energy, or I just cannot seem to get motivated to do what I want, or I'm depressed or anxious, just not myself. So those are the kind of complaints that people have come to me with. And so I have to kind of decide, is this low thyroid? Is this some autoimmune disorder? Or is it more likely, and I'll tell you probably in 8 or 9 out of 10 people, maybe even more, it's more likely related to how they're dealing with their life issues, and specifically their life stress. They hadn't heard Kelly McGonigal and weren't quite thinking about this being as a potentially a positive thing in their life. But if you have these symptoms, you're not alone. 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience some type of mental illness. And as you can see, anxiety and depression are high up on the list of issues. So she talked a bit about stress, and sometimes when you're under stress, what one person perceives as stress is a challenge to another. And I think about this as like, having a boat that holds your stress. Some of us have little canoes or rafts, and we're able to deal with more stress or less stress than others. Some of us have like an ocean liner and can deal with whole bunches of stress. And what's stressful to one person may not be stressful to the other. So again, what have we grown up in our culture? Most of us have grown up in the culture thinking that stress is a bad thing. But as she pointed out, it doesn't have to be, but it has to. We have to have a change in our thoughts about this and understand that we're all prone to developing stress, even the superheroes among us. So there are certain signs that can occur when people are under stress. Physical signs like change in body functions and physical health, changes in emotions and feelings, changes in behavior, changes in thought process. So let's look at a few of these different things, like how can stress, especially if you look upon it as being a harmful thing, affect your body. So if you look on the list here on the right, it has the bigger letters. People come in and see me with dry mouth, a pounding heart, difficulty breathing, stomach upset, headache, frequent urination, sweating palms, tight muscles that may cause pain and trembling, backache, fatigue, dizziness. Sounds a bit like long COVID, huh? Anybody who's had COVID and has any of a number of these symptoms or have had COVID, they may think they have long COVID, but actually it may also just be how they're handling life stresses, how their body is reacting. So it's our job as physician providers to kind of sort out, is this something that is a hormonal thing like a overactive thyroid, underactive thyroid, or some problem with the adrenal glands, or is it some other problem like with a pneumonia? We have to kind of sort through that. But once we've decided that it is nothing that we can kind of treat with our medication or our food or whatever it might be, then we start thinking maybe this is a stress-related complaint. Okay, what other effects can it have? It can affect our emotional health, emotions and feelings, like we can feel more tense or irritable, have anger or sadness, worry, be excessively tired. Let's keep going. What other effects can be changes in our behavior, like too much sleep, too little sleep, too much eating, too little eating. That goes on in our classes, probably a lot. That how many of you have run up barriers to making that final leap to really transitioning completely to the diet which will bring you the most amount of benefits. It may be related to how you're dealing with stress. Sometimes it can affect sex, too much or too little. Drinking alcohol, again, too much. Using drugs, perhaps, can result from how one reacts. And then changing how you think. You can get to feel helpless or hopeless, hard to remember things, to concentrate, hard to look on the bright side. And when that happens, you start getting sucked into the black hole. And we try to help people, give them a hand to pull them out of that hole and get them back on the track of finding joy in their life. But all these things can occur when people are thinking about stress as being bad for them, basically. So here we go. If you think differently about stress, you can become courageous and more resilient. And one thing that has always resonated with me is Mark Twain's statement. I've suffered horrible events, many of which have never occurred. And I remember when I was in medical school, I thought I had cancer of my legs because I had these lumps and bumps that I didn't feel on anybody else. Hasn't affected my life to date. So it's either a very slow growing cancer or it was just some extra fat globules that I developed when I was younger and considerably overweight. I have had chest discomfort at times going through medical school and thought, well, I must have a heart problem. I've had high blood pressure when I was in medical school. I had just about every illness I read about when I was becoming a doctor. So I suffered horrible events, but they never occurred, these events. But that gets into the idea of worry. So again, this can be maybe as simple as doing a little clip on from the I can't do it to I can, and from the stress is going to kill me or cause me serious harm to it's going to make me more courageous and resilient. So what can you do about stress other than having a mindset that it's helpful for you? Sometimes it's helpful to reduce the caffeine in your life. That can lead to some anxiety in some people. More fruits and veggies is helpful. They're not inflammatory. They're anti-inflammatory, and that can result in decreased stress. Getting enough sleep, and 7 to 7.5 hours, I think, is the statistic of having a good night's sleep for most people. You may be slightly more or slightly less. Regular exercise, again, it doesn't have to be running marathons, but just doing walking, yoga, or some fun sport like tennis or ping pong, or who knows, whatever you enjoy doing, dancing. And then you can do mind calming through meditation, learning to do some meditation. It was something that I really had a lot of trouble with. I could never sit still. and to have me sit still for, well, I think the study by John Kabat-Zinn, at his clinics, he used to have people do 45 minutes to an hour of meditation. And man, I couldn't do 2 minutes. But my wife got up to 20, and I was able to get up to about 15 to 20 at times, feeling a little bit of competition. And I actually did feel much calmer. And people can not only reverse blood pressure problems, they can reverse chronic pain through meditation. There's a lot of benefits to learning to do that. And it's not hard. It's just a matter of practice. Expressing your feelings through counseling or maybe journaling can be really an effective thing. Body-centered relaxation. There's biofeedback things. There's massage, aromatherapy. Those things can be helpful for certain people. And then there is Wim Hof. The medical student introduced me to this, and this is cold therapy, where people take cold showers or they dip themselves in ice baths, and they tend to have discomfort for a short time and get rid of pain and resolve other issues that are often associated with stress. So things that you can do the breathing exercises, and let's see, we're going to get on a little bit more. We've gone through most of this stuff. And I want to share with you why zebras don't get ulcers, why they don't develop stress very often. Let's take a look at what I think it's Sapolsky.
If you're a normal mammal, what stress is about is 3 minutes of screaming terror on the savannah, after which it's either over with or you're over with.
For a few weeks every year or so, Sapolsky shifts his lab to a place more than 9,000 miles away on the plains of the Masai Mara Reserve in Kenya, East Africa.
You live in a place like this, you're a baboon, and you only have to spend about 3 hours a day getting your calories. And if you only have to work 3 hours a day, you got 9 hours of free time every day to devote to making somebody else just miserable. They're not being stressed by lions chasing them all the time. They're being stressed by each other. They're being stressed by social and psychological tumult invented by their own species. They're a perfect model for westernized stress-related disease. Because what stress is about is somebody is very intent on eating you, or you are very intent on eating somebody, and there's an immediate crisis going on.
When you run for your life, basics are all that matter. Lungs work overtime to pump mammoth quantities of oxygen into the bloodstream. The heart races to pump that oxygen throughout the body, so muscles respond instantly.
You need your blood pressure up to deliver that energy. You need to turn off anything that's not essential. Growth, reproduction, you're running for your life. This is no time to ovulate. Tissue repair, all that sort of thing. Do it later if there is a later.
When the zebra escapes, its stress response shuts down. But human beings can't seem to find their off switch.
We turn on the exact same stress response for purely psychological states, thinking about the ozone layer, the taxes coming up, mortality, 30-year mortgages. We turn on the same stress response, and the key difference there is we're not doing it for a real physiological reason, and we're doing it nonstop. After a while, the stress response is more damaging than the stressor itself, because the stressor is some psychological nonsense that you're falling for. No zebra on Earth running for its life would understand why fear of speaking in public would cause you to secrete the same hormones that it's doing at that point to save its life.
Okay, I'm gonna stop again. And we're gonna see if we can answer any questions. Because, you know, I can go on into infinity, but I really want to spend a few minutes of time with you all to see if you have questions, some comments that you might like to make, something that's happened in your life that you wish to share, those sorts of issues. Yeah, so Edward and Eureka.
She heard you say her name, now she's freaking out. So whenever I put my cuff on for the blood pressure,
Yeah,
and it starts clamping down on my arm, I freak out. Not intentionally. I can't help it. My body just doesn't like what's going on. But I'm gonna give that breathing thing a try. That sounds like it could really help.
all right. So I don't like pain myself, and those are kind of painful sometimes, the blood pressure cuff. Not everybody experiences the same level of discomfort with them, but I surely don't blame you for having that kind of response, that you don't like it done.
It's not even painful. It's just like, I don't know, there's this pressure. I don't like it. Make it go away.
Okay, so control your blood pressure. How are you going to control your blood pressure? We've talked about it. There's some strategies. What are they? You avoid processed foods. You avoid salt. You avoid, you eat more fruits and veggies. You exercise regularly. You do some meditation, and you don't have to take blood pressure pills or even keep taking your blood pressure all the time. Do you know how often I take my blood pressure? The doctor will take it maybe once a year if I'll go in. I don't really want to go in right now, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know, but I know a number of you, but of course I'm trying to maximize all these other issues in my life, so I don't have to go. I want the same for you.
Thank you.
All right, Diane.
Hi, it's David. I had a question about serotonin. And when I was a PA in psychiatry, there is science emerging that showed that the health of the microbiome might help in the production of serotonin and help patients with depressive disorders. And I'm thinking that there may be some new science you could shed light on that would explain that.
So David, you're right about the serotonin. It's produced by your microbiome, about 90% of the serotonin in your body. And who produces it? The bacteria are the microbiome in your large intestine. And if you give them enough food, they'll produce a lot of it for you. And if you starve them, they'll produce a lot less. So how would you starve the microbiome or the bacteria? You stop feeding them fiber. The average American is eating about 15 grams of fiber. Someone who's totally whole food plant-based, like myself, eating 60 to 80 grams of fiber every day. Our country says 30 to 35 grams of fiber is probably a beneficial amount. It may not be the optimal, but that's what they think is a good compromise from 14 or 15 grams a day. So you don't get enough. That fiber is the food for your microbiome to produce serotonin. And most people are starving their microbiome in our country.
You hear time and time again how people feel better on the whole food plant-based diet. And I wonder if it has any relation.
It's a good thought. Scott, do you have any other thoughts on this?
No, just what you were saying about the higher levels of serotonin. So eating a more plant-based diet. So that's the only science I can show there. But also with lifestyle medicine, things work in together with each other. So if you're eating better, you're more likely moving more and sleeping better, and all those things kind of go together, and you're more likely to interact with others and have all those other pillars of lifestyle medicine kind of running smoothly. If you're doing well on one or two of them, usually they all start to get better.
And
So
if
then
you
it's hard to pinpoint which one's helping the most, so.
Right.
And David, if you stick with the classes, we'll be showing you some videos about the impact of food on mood, those sorts of things.
Great.
Thanks.
Marcia.
Okay, yeah, when can stress or what can cause like panic attacks coming just out of the blue? Nothing around is going on. You're with family, you're doing, just walking, you stop in your tracks, or you're eating and you stop halfway up to your mouth, and but there doesn't seem anything around to be causing them.
Yeah, so absolutely. Panic attacks are something that comes on. It's probably at a level that's less than your normal level of consciousness. Something is a trigger that pushes the button and sets you off down this path of anxiety, and you feel horrible. You may have tremor or shaking, may have difficulty breathing, and you say, what is this all about? I mean, things are going good in my life today, but there's something you saw, something that you heard, something that pushed the button that set this process in motion. And I think cognitive behavioral therapy is probably as effective as anything in dealing with panic attacks. Eating healthier food, exercising on a regular basis, I think will reduce those attacks potentially, but spending some time with a cognitive behavioral therapist is probably of value when you're dealing with panic attacks. That's been my experience.
Well, luckily I haven't had one for a while, but when they happen, they're scary. You could be talking to me, or we could be talking, I'll stop. You ask me something, I can't respond, but I can hear you.
Yeah, it's very frightening. And, as it turns out, fortunately, the vast majority of panic attacks are not what you would consider life-threatening or shortening your lifespan. And so understanding that, it may help calm you a bit, but at the time it's happening, it can be a horrible experience.
Yeah, and for the people around you too. I mean, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, Nancy.
I actually have two things. For Marcia, I have a very longstanding close friend who also has panic attacks. And of course, it's very challenging. It's definitely biological based, it's not really psychological. And one of the things that we discovered in the research and work for him was that oddly enough, and I think this is a not well-known fact, so I wanted to make sure I mentioned it, there's a high correlation between panic attacks and mitral valve prolapse. And if you can, I don't know if you have that, but it's usually a benign condition, and not anything to worry about. A lot of times nobody even looks for it or notices it, but it's worth mentioning because the correlation is pretty high, and it could be something simple like that. But you have my total sympathy and compassion, because I know this suffering is very grave and it's a scary thing. It's very unpleasant, and but you can find the answer. So the other thing I wanted to say, not related, was you mentioned Wim Hof earlier.
Yep.
And I know I have a friend who had lymphoma, was kind of not making good progress with his doctors, and he was deteriorating, really close to death. And he had these terrible, huge, lumps in his throat, and it was terrifying and sad. But he decided that if direct medicine wasn't going to help him, one thing he did was, this is like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, he decided that he would manage his stress and take faith in his body to be able to respond to it. And so he started out by swimming the entire length of the Willamette River from Eugene to Portland. And after that did other very rigorous things. He swam the entire length of the Shannon River in Ireland, and he climbed mountains, and he did the Wim Hof therapies too, which is why I thought of it. And his name is Dean Hall, and he is, after he started that regimen, he is completely cancer-free. He's fine. He's fine. He's just written a book about it, in fact. So anyway, just that's to say, don't scoff at any of these other strategies, because when you can trust your body and put it in the right set of circumstances, you could get what looks like miracles, and we could probably have a whole lot more miracles than we realize. So thank you. That's all.
Thanks for sharing that, Nancy. Anyone else? I see Lisa's kind of back with us in live and in person. Do you have anything to share today, or either about Facebook or the book club or whatever?
Just the same as usual. We got some exciting news that I can expand the book club to students at the school. So I'm working with Crystal to get that going, and I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that's great to hear. I love it. For your information and for others, I've been working with the medical school and talked with the chairman of the curriculum committee at the medical school at Western University of Health Sciences. There's a school in California, which Lisa's attending, and then there's one up in Lebanon, in which I teach at. And so I approached him about incorporating plant-based nutrition curriculum or into our school's curriculum. And he was supportive, but didn't make the decision. He says, I need to go around to the block leads, and there are about, I think, 15, and get their buy-in to yield up an hour here, an hour there, or a couple hours during each of their courses. And we could make it happen next year if there's enough who are willing to do that. So I just sent out the letters today, and we'll see what kind of response we get. I'm kind of excited about it. Anything else? Scott, do you have any words of wisdom for the group?
Nothing comes to mind.
Any movie thoughts or any other kind of things that are on the horizon?
Oh yeah, I guess we're trying to think about maybe in April doing another movie social. We'll see. I just watched that documentary I sent to you that just came out, and then it sounds like it might be available for public viewing by the end of this month, but we'll have to see. So I'm thinking about that potentially. But then in May, for sure, we'll start the monthly walks, the Eugene Plant-Based Provider Community Walks. We'll start those up. We did those starting in May of last year, so we'll pick those up where we left off. Hopefully we'll get some good. Seems far-fetched right now because it's March, but we're still getting snow on the ground. So
right,
it's hard to think about doing walks in May, but that's still only just a couple months off.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know about Eugene Plant-Based Providers, it's a group of what, 40 people now?
Mm-hmm.
Physicians and physician assistants and nurses and registered dietitians and
I'll show the website here.
it's
I actually have a link to it off of our class website. You scroll down here, Eugene Plant-Based Providers, you can click here or here. And here's the website for Eugene Plant-Based Providers. So we have list of all the providers here. We'll keep upcoming events here posted. There's nothing right now since we just had the movie social a couple weeks ago. But yeah, you can check out this website and sign up for the newsletter and all kinds of information on there. But you can see some of the providers here. This is not all of the providers, just some of that have put a profile up. So you can check out the background of each person. And yeah, we do free community events and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, definitely bookmark this website too on your, that's just a way to kind of get together as in education and just, you know, kind of our tribe here, try to network together and enjoy experiences together and get more education and all that.
What makes me so excited about the Eugene Plant-Based Providers is for so many years, I kind of was on my own down in Roseburg, and then I found Scott when I moved to Oak Ridge. And we kind of did classes together, but it just didn't seem like there was much of a family of support. But when you have 40 other healthcare providers who are showing an interest and a willingness to be involved and spread the word, it feels really good after spending a lot of years alone. So that's just my thoughts on that. So we've come to kind of the end of this session. We're going to carry on again next week. We're going to have some more to share with you. We've got a number of other videos which I want to share about food and mood and those sorts of things, and just continue to the discussion. And I appreciate all your participation, and it's been great fun. If there's anybody who has one last issue to deal with, we can try to deal with it. And other than that, I hope you have a wonderful week. Yes, Van.
You know, I had a LDL, it's, you know, just a recent annual physical, LDL 74, but HDL 35, and the doctor recommended, you know, he recommended, of course, a teaspoon of fish oil a day. What do you think? Teaspoon of algal oil a day?
I think a tablespoon of flaxseed with a quarter cup of walnuts is probably going to get you enough omega-3 for that issue. I wouldn't be taking any free oils like that. And by the way, your LDL sounds magnificently low. Remember, the HDL is they're like garbage trucks. If you don't have a lot of garbage, if you don't have a lot of cholesterol, your HDL is going to be lower than what it might normally be. So you don't have a lot of garbage when you have an LDL that's 74. I'd feel like I'm good and I'd stop the worry.
was doing three tablespoons of flaxseed and a quarter cup of walnuts. But yeah, okay, well, that sounds good.
Here,
Scott,
another
do you have
example.
anything to add?
Yeah, another example of that is the Tarahumara Indians in the Copper Canyon of Northwest Mexico. That tribe, there's no heart disease amongst that tribe. And guess what their average HDL is? Their good cholesterol. It's only 25.
Good Lord.
Which is low, right? Because just like Charlie was saying, because they have no heart disease. So they have their LDL cholesterol is about 55.
55.
And their total cholesterol, and their total cholesterol is about 125 to 130. That's their average cholesterol. And they're, you know, 90% of their calories come from beans, corn, and squash. So they're mostly plant-based eaters. They do occasionally kill a pig for a celebration. They eat a little bit of eggs and a little bit of dairy, but it's very, very small. It's less than 10% of their calories, those other foods. But they 90% is beans, corn, and squash, and they run like 40 miles at a time. They play a game where they kick a ball for 40 miles. The Tarahumara, they're the running people. There's a book about them, Born to Run, that was really good. I read.
Again, was it Nancy that was saying what a great thing that was for a friend to swim or to go crazy on athletics?
Yeah.
So maybe that has, but what was I going to say? Well, anyway, oh, I remember. So Charlie had mentioned, I've been attending his class more. He thought you were maybe yourself or 2 or 3 teaspoons of, algal oil a day.
Yeah, you could do, there's a supplement, EPA, DHA supplement you can take that's made from algae, from sea algae that's grown in a sterile vat, or you could do like Charlie says, and eat, the nori or wakame, some of the sea vegetables, they have some of the long chain omega-3s in them as well. So you're better off eating lower on the food chain. Instead of doing fish oil, you're better off doing eating the algae itself, whether it's seaweed or a algae-based vegan supplement for DHA, EPA instead of the fish oil.
Have you ever found anything supplement that has EPA, DHA without the oil?
Well, yeah, all the algae-based ones there's not oil. It's just it's just made from sea algae itself in a sterile vat. That's what I take once in a while.
Do they encapsulate it or?
Yeah, they're just in a little. Actually, it's just a little. Yeah, it's in a little gel capsule.
I'll have to look for that then.
Edward, did you have a question?
I did for a second, but then I accidentally worked it out.
Okay. And then Lisa, April is coming up a morning talk with the telemedicine. If you had some free time, look on the date for the note. I'd love to do a session with you.
Yes, I saw your email briefly. I'll look into it and get back to you.
Good deal. Okay, Scott, thank you. And thanks to all the rest of the people and the new members. Look forward to having you back. And the old members, thank you for coming again and supporting the tribe. And we'll go at it again next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right, sounds good. All right, see you next week.
Thanks.
All righty,
Yeah.
take care.
Yeah.